I was impressed by Allan Gray before I even started working here. I had an opportunity to have experienced and met some of the senior people at Allan Gray, the likes of Simon Murray, Jack Mitchell, Stephen Mildenhall, in a previous role, and they always stood out. They were always impressive individuals who had something special about them. And so at a time when not many people knew of Allan Gray, so this was in 2003, I already had a respect for the business, the brand, how it carried itself in dealings with clients. And it was a place that I wanted to work.
Number one is the quality of the people that it manages to employ. Number two is the obsession with its primary focus, which is to deliver superior, risk-adjusted, long-term performance on behalf of its clients. Thirdly is our contrarian, value-orientated investment approach, which over decades has proved to be an investment approach which can generate long-term outperformance. And then fourthly is being an unlisted company with a very strong shareholder that allowed us to focus entirely on our objective, which was to generate long-term performance for our clients, irrespective of any pressures that we got from our existing clients or from consultants or from the market when we went through periods of underperformance.
The purpose of Allan Gray is to be the steward of its clients' financial assets. And that really means their financial security and their future and their ability to be able to provide for themselves and their families and achieve what their personal hopes and dreams are, because their hard-earned wealth, or even a fraction of that in a small scale, is being looked after properly.
We're bottom-up investors, so we try understand the businesses we invest in. We try to understand how they make money. We try to understand what they're worth, and that's where we put most of our effort in. And we always look for a margin of safety. We have a lot of smart people in the investment team, but we're going to make mistakes. If you get sort of 6 out of 10 right, you're probably in the top quartile of investors globally. And the difference between 6 out of 10 and 5 out of 10, 5 out of 10 is random. And then what we want to do is we want to be on the right side of long-term trends as well. So, when economic variables get to extremes, we will take a view as well. I think the question people ask least of us, of all the years of presentations I've done speaking to new clients, is actually, when do you sell? People focus a lot on when do you buy. And we've spent a lot of time over the years thinking, when a share reaches fair value, we've got to sell, even if it continues to go up, and we buy something else after we've sold.
It's much easier to deal with them if you're prepared. And that's something that we aim to do. We aim to be prepared for the challenges. So that's not to say that we can predict them or that we're smart enough to know when they're coming. But what we do try and do is assess the risks in the market at any point in time and assess where possible shocks or macro risks, as you say, could play out, and try and be prepared for them by having a portfolio that will perform well in those scenarios which we think are potential bad scenarios. To the extent that we've been able to achieve that, when the macro shocks come, actually they present opportunity.
It's about making up your own mind. Rather than following the crowd or listening to the noise that's out there, just saying, what are the facts? How do I interpret the facts? And having, a commitment to go with your own analysis rather than relying on other people's analysis. And that means sometimes you are with the crowd, sometimes the crowd is right, but oftentimes the crowd is not right. And then you're on your own, and as long as you've done the work, thought about it carefully, then you should be happy to go your own way.
The ownership structure of an asset manager is the first thing I would look at. And what's been very important about our ownership structure with the Allan and Jill Gray Foundation is it allows us to take a long-term view as an investment firm. We don't have to produce profit targets every 6 months. Investment management is hard enough as it is without having to meet short-term targets. So we're not part of a listed entity. We have shareholders who take a long-term view. And what's important to me is a significant portion of Allan Gray's revenue, given the ownership structure, is on performance fees. And Allan was always a big believer we should walk in the same shoes as our clients. So if we're doing well as a firm, our clients are doing well. But then importantly, with the ownership structure, given the staff scheme and that most of the senior investment executives own shares in the company or own a profit share, what we earn depends on how the firm does. And if what the firm does depends on how the clients do, it means we have a direct link between the senior investment people and how the clients do. And I think that's a very big advantage relative to many of our competitors.
Allan was obsessed with focus. So he thought that it would be very important that the chief investment officer focused all his or her energies on the main task of generating long-term superior performance for the clients. The chief operating officer would handle all business and human resource issues. So that would allow the chief investment officer not to get sidetracked. And so for him, it was entirely a matter of focus. And I think that has worked exceptionally well.
You have no business unless you do a good job for clients. And so that is what's made us successful.
Performance is important. So if you've got a track record of performance, I think that speaks a lot for itself. I also think there's an element of trust. So, and trust is hard won and easily lost. And I think if you can maintain that through both good communication, great ethics, and just being very clear about where you stand and what your position is, I think that builds trust. And I think a lot of what the business does is about building trust and maintaining that trust.
Allan had many, many opportunities to stop working, to live a good life. He had plenty of money. He didn't need to carry on working. He didn't need to give all his money away to charity. But he understood, I think, and I hope I have the same combination of wisdom and discipline. He understood that the kind of route to happiness isn't material comfort or a nice big yacht or the ability to spend whatever you like on holidays and things like that. The route to happiness is feeling like you have meaning in your work, feeling like you have relationships around you that are, loving relationships with your family and your friends.
I would say humility. Allan was an incredible person, but he stayed humble. I always remember an experience when we were in Granger Bay. Allan used to come out once a year to spend some time with the business. And I happened to be coming out of the elevator at the reception area, and there was Mr. Gray busy signing in the security book. So clearly the security guard had said, you need to sign in. Security guard not realizing who he was. And Mr. Gray was there filling out, under name, Allan Gray, filling out his details. And that small moment for me summed it up. Here was a person whose name was on the building. This was essentially his organization. And yet he was being asked to complete a form in order to access the building. And with no hesitation, with no qualms or ego, proceeded to do so. That was just a small sign of the person he was to me.
He didn't try and lock our clients in, which was the fashion at the time. And people said to him, Allan, you're crazy. Why would you set up a business like this where your clients can fire you and all your clients can fire you immediately? You're not going to have a business. You're setting up a very weak and vulnerable organization. And I clearly remember Allan saying, yes, but that vulnerability is our greatest strength, because it means that every day when we come into the office, we all know that we have to work really hard at adding value for clients and continuing to earn their trust and their confidence, so that we can keep them as clients. And that motivation is what propels us towards excellence.
The most important thing about investing is what doesn't change. And what doesn't change is human nature. People are the same. People get very greedy. People get very fearful about things, and people panic. The one very consistent thing is human emotion, and we look to take advantage of people getting too fearful and people getting too greedy. Those things have been happening for the last 50 years. I'm sure they've been happening for the last 500 years.
Be very clear about use of time. I think the advert said it quite well. Time is valuable, make it count.
We live in a world, and both as consumers and particularly in financial services, in which people are cynical, and it's cool to be cynical. So my one piece of advice to people is don't be cynical. When the firm says we avoid conflicts, we don't manage it. When people in the firm say we always put our clients' interests first. When the story is told about having a very long-term horizon, don't be cynical and think that that's marketing speak. Because the truth is that some of the naive, if you like, stories, values that reside within the firm are easy to dismiss if you're cynical. And so I'd say actually believe in what we're trying to do, believe in the fact that it's different to what 99% of people want to do in our industry, and appreciate how unusual it is, but just suspend your cynicism because, it's the truth.
Whatever role Allan Gray plays, I hope it would be a thoughtful role, a considerate role, that we would take into account our clients and not just the business, that we take into account broader society and not just our industry. Our role should definitely be a role that's broad and encompassing, that forces us to look at all components of society and not just a narrow perspective that's built around self-interest or our industry.
The difference we make in people's lives by growing their savings, and just the difference we're going to make through the foundation. We all know our country is going through a pretty tough period. We're going to create jobs. We're going to improve education, because you can't be a successful company in a country that's really going to battle over the longer term. And I know for many of our employees, it's one of the main reasons we work at Allan Gray.